Hi, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful lunch, and I'm very pleased to see you in such a high number still remaining. Please do come in. And welcome to this session 7 on artificial intelligence in scholarly communication. We had some interesting discussions today as well in proposing some AI solutions to this. And I think when you turn on news, everything that we hear today is AI. And whenever someone is speaking, it seems that we need to have AI in everything. I'm really happy that we'll have 3 different presentations today. The first one comes from University of Split, actually, from a team that I'm glad to meet for the first time, coming from that university as well, a few years ago. And it's Jelena, Madunić, and Matija Sovulj who will talk to us about ChatGPT. I hope you all had opportunities to at least experiment with it in your private and personal lives. So please do. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. So our topic today will be maybe from a very humble perspective of somebody who works in a Croatian academic library. Ever since the rollout of this new technology, starting in the end of 2022, and maybe this big boom at the start of 2023, I think the first comments, or maybe not comments, but concerns coming from the higher education sector were mostly somewhere in the direction of torches and forks reaction, angry villagers attacking the castle, and mostly very negative concerns focused on what is going to happen with the student assessment, if this tool can do anything that traditional assessment in higher education can do, how will it affect our role as teachers and also instructors, and not to mention the libraries, because they are dead. Academic libraries also too have been dead for a while now. If we talk about this application in academic library sector and how is it going to affect our services and what we provide, already now we are talking about 9 months in, there are already a lot of very mature AI software solutions, not only for research, but also a lot of I would say an ocean of small apps, and new ones are coming every day because the software development circle has shortened so much that people can do APIs in a very, very short period of time. Academic libraries have 3 problems that they have been facing for a while now, and I think these 3 problems will also transfer to the sector of AI. The first one is the cost, because you can't afford mature AI products. The second one is that in order to train the model, you need a massive amount of data, and these data have to be perfect data. You all know that you put trash in and trash comes out. And of course, the third problem is that you really can't afford IT experts and professionals that you really need in order to implement all this. In our very, I would say again, humble research, we wanted to put maybe a spin on this very negative narrative, and maybe answer the questions what we can do as instructors and how we can use this new technology in order to maybe think differently about this new information landscape that's going to definitely appear. It has been appearing for the last year, and I think this is definitely the future. So how can we use this tool in order to change the learning and the teaching methodology. So basically our research question was, how can we integrate this into the open educational resources framework and see if we can combine this new technology with the OER philosophy. While developing the strategy for training the model, we basically had to think about two things. What is our goal? What do we want to achieve? And always taking into consideration that preparation here is the key. I think most of you have played with the model, have maybe started using it in your everyday work, and preparation here is the key. Preparation is strategy. Strategy meaning you have to know what you want to achieve and follow certain steps, starting from the role that you assign to the model, then to the context, and then specific standards that you have to instruct the model to use, and finally instruct the model to use a specific output format. We used a couple of resources in information theory about the prompt engineering, using the CLEAR framework for prompt engineering, and also instructional advice for writing instructional text. Basically, we started with the prompt script. So we didn't go in with the first question, second question, and then went on to reflective, but developed the whole script that we basically followed then and fed it into the model. Our starting point was the course implementation plan, which we used in order to identify the parameters that we were going to feed into the model. The initial script we followed in order to get the raw output. Two reviewers which checked our output, that was the complete syllabus for this course implementation plan, were given raw output, meaning that it didn't have any interventions from our side. We noticed some things were wrong immediately, but we didn't correct them until we saw the comments from these two external reviewers. We gave them just this three general criteria, and we wanted an assessment in the form of a textual commentary. Why? Because our plan was to use these comments to again train the model and fix some of the mistakes that we received in our first output. I think we got this. Somebody asked how much time we spent. I think in maybe an hour we got a 15-page document with these subheadings, meaning that this is a type of document that you can go into the classroom with as an instructional designer. You basically put the parameters in, tell the model what to do, assign it a certain role, and then in 1 hour you have basically a complete material for your class, including everything, notes, handouts. Everything that you have to do is just this graphic design. If you want to make it more appealing, of course, you need to make it more appealing if you are an instructional designer. Some of the key takeaways from our reviewers were, I think, common to both of them. That commented that the model had certain problems with retaining the level of complexity that was expected from it. Although we instructed it several times to keep the role of an instructional designer at a very high level, very high academic level. It kept, I would say, falling down. You would have to instruct it again to increase the complexity of the output. Okay, I'm down. And we have time, I hope, for our further steps, and my colleague is going to.
Thank you, Jelena. This will be brief. So we have created our custom chatbot using ChatGPT's API. The whole process does not require any coding, and it's free to make. So we used Pinecone as a vector database. We stored around 2,700 vectors. It is a small data set, and we use the render as a server through which we deployed a service called Flowwise. Flowwise lets you create so-called chat flows, which you use to create chatbots that can have different purposes. The purpose of our chatbot was to feed it with a specific data set and to retrieve information from it. The whole process of creating a chat flow can be done in under 1 minute. And of course, we need to further test our custom chatbot, so we plan to use a larger data set with more specific tasks in mind. And that's it from us. Thank you very much.
Maybe you can remain, because I think we have a little bit of time for a question. So I would actually invite a little bit of discussion from that. And maybe if I can, I'll ask the first one. We've seen our information librarians who also teach data science and other people who teach statistics have been using ChatGPT to create perfect data sets for things. They say, give me, 2 groups of patients with this kind of characteristics and, these measurements of blood pressure or something. And when I compared them, let the p-value of this test be, statistically significant, and even make the data not perfect so that there's some, sort of learning things. And it's really remarkable what they can do. So my question to you would be, having created this, and when you compare it to the things that you were teaching previously, how would you rate what you created on the satisfaction for the students? Do you think this is sort of, does it help you? Does it enhance you? Or?
Well, I think it's maybe, from my perspective, I'm maybe a little bit prejudiced because I'm old. And
Old, young.
Old meaning I have around maybe 20 years experience in teaching at all levels of education, starting from elementary school, high school, and higher education. So I moved up the whole, how do you call it? Vertical of education. So I would say that some of these things are very basic from my perspective, but somebody who doesn't have experience in teaching, somebody who is, just coming out into the field from a distance, looks great. From a distance, it looks great, but somebody who has experience can see the flaws in it, can see, the things that the model doesn't, and, it can't be creative with some things. And I think if you really want to be like a good instructional designer, I think that creativity spark is, something a must. I don't know, but I said I'm maybe too prejudiced, but I hope that with this model that Matija developed, I hope that we will see some good application in our library that we can use for some small things that the colleagues need, with a limited data set. So yeah. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, I think I did. I think it reflects a lot of things that we've seen that people think for the first draft, it's wonderful, especially if you have, writer's block or something, you don't know where to start, that it really provides you so much things that then when you do have expertise, it's easier to edit than actually recreate it from the start. That's sort of what we've been learning from others. And I think we'll maybe be able to test that more in, if we give one thing to the students compared to what something an experienced person created to see, you know, what the effects, would there be differences in actual education. Any questions from the audience? If not, we would move to the second presentation this time. Oh, yes, please.
I really liked your answer, but do you think there is a danger in that people who are not that experienced will think that they have a ready-made product and they can actually use that and feel competence where there shouldn't be any, maybe?
Definitely agree with that, but isn't that the case with any new technology? What are we doing on the beach with our telephones? So I think that that's where this role of libraries and information literacy comes again. And I think AI literacy is now something that we should all start implementing at higher education sector. Those of us who work directly with students, I think that it is necessary. But then first you have to educate yourself in order to educate the student, and it's such a fast-moving cycle. So
maybe if I can have the last one. Did you see students preparing homework using ChatGPT?
Yes.
Well, we'll leave that at that. It is my pleasure now to move a little bit north from Split to University of Rijeka to Faculty of International Law and Vice Dean of Science from University of Rijeka, Ivana Kunda, and the floor is yours. Yes.
Puno hvala. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I would like also to thank for the invitation to speak before this wonderful audience. It's the first time I have the opportunity to talk about this topic to people outside legal sphere, so I hope that my message will be clear enough, and if not, please interrupt me or ask questions later. I will gladly elaborate further because of the limited time. When I was thinking about how to regulate questions of artificial intelligence, especially generative artificial intelligence in research, the ideas came to me right away after this huge hype from the last November occurred everywhere. And everybody thinks that somehow we should approach this question with further knowledge on this topic. I think we can all agree on that, because it's so quick that things change and develop, that by the time we have some opinion about it, we already have some new developments ongoing. So what I'm trying to say is that legal regulation will be more and more in constant delay. And that's what we are faced with. So one way to cope with such problems is interpretation of the rules. We have some rules which try to embody our values. And when it comes to new development, we try to see this development through the eyes of something old, by analogies or metaphors or something like that, trying to compare these new developments with something old. And this is what we can do as one approach. Before I go into details of the models which we can use to regulate use of artificial intelligence in academic research and publication, I'll just try to point out few issues which I think most of us know, but I believe a short review could be useful. The generative artificial intelligence is trying to mimic our intelligence in a way to produce some content, so very specialized task. It is far from similar to ours as we know it, because it's based on the foundation model, which we call a large language model. Large language model is something that actually shuffles the words and sentences, paragraphs, and so on. It's not actually there to make sense of it. It's there to make new sentences without knowing about what they're talking about. So that's at least the current state of the art. And since we are dealing with something like that, the text it's generated, for example, if we go to the text, then it could sound very sophisticated, but on the other hand, it can be completely erroneous. We all know that it can be also invented fully, because it's just based on guessing what should come next, what word should come next, and so on. So it can be invented, or it can be just an error, simple error in making this task. For these reasons, we have a problem with scientific research based, or scientific publication based on such text. So if a scientist would adopt this without being critical towards such a text, that would be absolutely dangerous. That would just ruin everything we've done so far. Because then we would create science fakes, and they would create deeper science fakes, one after another. So we have to stop that thing right away, because if we let just a little bit of it to infiltrate our scientific world, I think there is no return. There is no return how to differentiate between what's a fake, what is not. Already now we are dealing with some cases of such human behavior, but those are not, I'd say, not in such huge amounts that we cannot handle it. The black box thing is the next very important problem from the scientific point of view. If you cannot explain how you get from A to B, then what is scientific about it? Science means that I know exactly how I get from one hypothesis to some conclusion and so on, from one premise to a conclusion or so on. Therefore, the problem is that in all of those language models, more sophisticated they are, there are more and more parameters which are used to create the end result. We don't know what kind of parameters are used, what combination, and there are billions, I think, in GPT-4, billions. And we as humans cannot just comprehend that. It's too difficult, especially when it comes to sciences, which are social sciences and humanities. Also, there is a problem of bias, which we all know, because it can be inclined toward one or the other view. The idea of using the text, which is, as they call it, a stochastic parrot, means that you actually have a text being repeated on and on again without knowing what it means, without awareness of the world, without any opportunity to guess whether the text has any sense in the context or alike. And this is a particularly dangerous tool for young researchers who would more likely even be to use it because of their inexperience, and because of that also a lesser ability to detect potential errors and hallucinations and so on, as they're called. I believe that this is absolutely important, because they might just accept it, not knowing that it's a trap for them. So also the problem can be that ChatGPT only gives us a dominant view on something. And science is just the opposite. It wants to check every opportunity and then decide which opinion is the best. Also, the problem is that we don't know where the information comes from. And one of the key elements of academic discourse is also academic honesty. we have to know whose idea we are taking, what ideas are inbuilt there, and we should attribute them to those who have made this contribution. We should also have citations. That's the whole purpose of citation. Not to go into copyright, which is kind of related, but maybe we could just leave it aside for the now, because academic honesty is enough of a problem. Every international organization like UNESCO or EU who deal with these questions have expressed that approach to regulating this has to be has to take humans to the center of attention. So it has to be human perspective of it, not the machine or computer program perspective. It's about human activity using this tool rather than giving the tool some personality or whatever. And it is very few countries which have actually dedicated their strategies to artificial intelligence, maybe one third of the world, but even fewer number which have made any effort to create ethical standards for use of AI. Fewer to render any laws. We see how difficult it is for European Union to have that law because of lobbying and all these interests behind it. So there is a part of job for the legislator to prepare some terrain for us as researchers. Not everybody, no, we cannot regulate everything on our scientific institutions. But what we can do is try to think of what kind of institutional approach to regulating this we could take. And we can go from one end to the other. Well, the one end being we do nothing and we let things develop as they are. I think the industry would be the happiest with this approach. So before we find our way, they're now really thrilled. On the scale, we can move forward to the other end and we ban the use of any artificial intelligence generative tools in our research. Well, it's a question of what to do. Probably we see that some have done that because they have been shocked with this new development. They don't know what to do. Their rules so far say, if you are doing research, it has to be your. And is this mine if the ChatGPT writes something based on my prompt? I see that I'm out of time, but I'll take one more minute to just wrap it up. So we can see that the technology has prompted some of the leading universities in Europe as well, less in United States, but also in United States, to ban this entirely from educational and research process. And say, for example, for students, if you use it, it will be considered as plagiarism. That's what it says. Those universities, I can maybe cite some of them: Sciences Po, Imperial College London, LSE, Queen Mary, and so on. So there are such cases in which it is considered equal to plagiarism. Some have said, like Stanford, they issued policy guidelines saying that if it is not instructed by your teacher, you are not supposed to use generative AI. Only if the teacher thinks that could be beneficial for the class or for the studying or anything like that. So in doubt, ask your teacher. Well, that seems like a little bit of moderation on the scale, which I mentioned. In any case, I think that on this very scale, we need to take some less strict course of action than just ban something fully. Banning something means that we are not dealing with it, I think. We have to educate everyone about the mentioned risks. And if we do so, we will actually convince them that using this generative AI, at least as it is now, will not help them learn anything or pass the test or pass or publish anything. So this is how we should approach, especially to younger generations in doctoral study programs, because doctorate is the cornerstone of later scientific research. This is where you learn how you do things. And this is where we should put everything this. So we could do with hard rules, or we could try with the softer approach, which also includes education. And in the end, let me just show you, there is some useful UNESCO publication just issued, Guidance for Generative AI in Education and Research. It's online, so open access. So you're welcome to consult it. Thank you.
We will allow one question, and I'll make one more comment. Of the things not done in university, the only instance that I'm aware of is that the NIH in the United States has banned the use of ChatGPT during review of grants, because the project proposals that are written, and this is what is often not transparently said with many of these AIs, is what happens to the data that you feed it? Can they use that data to train it again? And for original ideas, it's possible that then they use your ideas before it's actually started being implemented. So I know that as the only funder who actually now requires all reviewers who review for them to sign a statement that they will not be able to, and the development methods that you are no longer able to copy paste any text of the proposals, but only access them through special portals, so you wouldn't be able to manipulate the data and feed them to those who are not supposed to see it.